Our main lead Isabel with her nanny Rita walks through the garden. Isabel asked her nanny, Rita, look at this. There's a flower, clear as crystal. Rita replied, oh my, how enchanting. While Isabel touches the flower, Rita asked her, shall we pick it and put it in your room? Isabel replied, no, that's all right. I have more than enough possessions already. I'd feel terrible taking it from where it belongs just for my own selfish desire. Hearing this, Rita said, oh, your highness, you have such a gentle heart. I'm sure the flower's fairy is grateful for your thoughtfulness. Isabel asked, do you truly think so? She replied, without a doubt. Suddenly a glowing ball appears and a voice came, dear Princess Isabel, ever so lovely, ever so kind. We love and adore you more deeply than you could ever imagine. Then after a time jump we saw Isabel all grown up and married to a noble. He shouted her name, Isabel, where are you? She rushed towards him saying, I'll be right there. He furiously asked her, did I not tell you we have an honored guest today? And yet you've prepared nothing. Isabel said, you said the guest would arrive around sundown, so I was tending to the garden. He said in anger, the garden? Perhaps in the kingdom you came from, princesses busy themselves with such menial tasks. But here, in the empire, that's the gardener's job, not the duty of a countess. Hearing this she flinched. She clenched her fist thinking, as if he would ever bother hiring a gardener. The kingdom of Rune, a small, tranquil nation nestled on an island, entirely surrounded by the sea. Rune was a realm of peace, where streets thrived with bustling crowds and children's laughter filled the air. But that peace shattered the day the Eternity Empire chose to invade our land. King Azair of Rune, a man who loathed the stench of blood, found himself distraught and adrift when the Empire's forces descended upon his kingdom. To the kingdom's relief, the Emperor of the invading empire extended one final mercy. A man reads a message from Emperor, offer no resistance, and surrender to the Empire, and the rest of Rune's people shall be spared. Prince Natal is to serve as a knight in the Imperial Order, and Princess Isabel shall marry a noble chosen by the Emperor himself. The prince and princess wasted little time in deliberation and accepted the terms without hesitation. And true to their word, no blood of Rune's people was shed from that day onward. She thinks, yes, I should be content that we managed to save the people of our kingdom, and yet, suddenly he shouted, Isabel. She flinched. While sitting next to Marquis he said, the Marquis is speaking to you. The Marquis said while snaping, the terms of the Moonstone contract are outlined in these reports. Will you review them and share your thoughts? He moves the report towards her. While trying to read she thinks, oh, this is… While the spoken tongues of the Empire and the kingdom may sound alike, their scripts are entirely different. I've lived at the Count's estate for a year now, yet he has never once bothered to hire a tutor for me. All the words here are so difficult to comprehend. Then she said, so this means, the amount of moonstones being mined from the Valen mines is less than expected, correct? She thinks, thank goodness I can at least grasp the main issue. Marquis said precisely. This was an unforeseen complication when we first drafted the contract. I'm hoping to revise the terms, and I wish to hear both of your opinions on the matter. She flinched when he said, if you look at the bottom of the page, you'll find the proposed changes. She thumps while thinking, huh? Thus, in light of the present circumstances, and require amendment. These are technical terms I do not recognize. Seeing this, her husband gets furious and grits his teeth. The Marquis said, it seems I overlooked an important detail. I wasn't aware the Countess still found the Empire's texts difficult to read. Her husband said to Marquis, forgive me. I ought to have been more thoughtful. After Marquis left, her husband hits her. After some time she thinks about that moment, saying to herself, countless times each day, I ponder fleeing this estate. If only I had not been born the Princess of Rune. If only I weren't bound by the promise I made to the Emperor. The wound I received on my cheek that day festered until it left a scar. Though the Count forbade me from going outside, I gradually withdrew from the world of my own accord. After some moments she went to her husband's office, where he sits there laughing while reading a paper. Ha! Hee. She asked him curiously, is there news? He smirks and said, your brother. The next words from his mouth puts her in a sudden shock, which were, I've just received word that he's been killed on the battlefield. She shouts, and no, that cannot be. My brother wouldn't fall in battle so easily. He shouts back, don't you dare raise your voice at me, you insolent girl who can't even read. She asked, what did you just say? He asked, why are you staring at me like that? I see. Do you think it's unjust, the way you're being treated? She starts crying and said, no, forgive me. She trembles and fell down asking, please, can you at least tell me, did they recover his body? He said, as if I'd share such information with you. You were born a princess, so I'm sure all of this must feel terribly unfair, even maddening. Yet, in truth, you ought to be grateful. Let's face the truth, you have no real value. The only reason you've been treated this well until now is because of your royal blood. The life you have here is far more generous than you deserve. Suddenly a voice in her head said, let's get rid of him. He's better off gone. Hearing this, she covers her ears. Seeing her, he shouted, why are you clutching your head like that? You're merely pretending, aren't you? She said to herself in her mind, Father, brother, how I miss you. I wish I could return to the days when everything was peaceful. The voice said, we'll take care of him for you, princess. We'll eliminate everyone who's ever caused you pain. So please, do not be distressed. She opens her eyes jolted. She shouts with shock. Her nanny comes hearing her voice and asked, Your Highness? She hugged her saying, Rita. Oh, Rita. While trembling she asked her, You are Rita, aren't you? My governess. Rita replied, Yes, Your Highness. There. It's all right. What has frightened you so? She asked. Did you have a nightmare? Isabel repeated, a nightmare. She thinks, my ever so kind governess, Rita. How I've missed her. Then Isabel rushed towards the window. Seeing her, Rita shouted, Your Highness? Isabel see the view outside. Seeing it, she thinks, this was the view I could always see from my room, at least until our kingdom was absorbed into the empire. She saw herself in window's mirror and thinks, and the reflection of myself in the window. She rubs her cheek thinking, my scar, it's gone. I don't quite understand what's happening, but I'm so happy to be here. Rita asked, Your Highness? Suddenly she fell unconscious and Rita shouted, Princess Isabel. She hears a voice calling her name, Belle. She thinks this voice. She opens her eyes on a bed and the first thing she saw was her dad asking, Isabel, are you all right? She thinks so. How I've dreamt of seeing you again. Tears fell down from her eyes saying, Father. Father asked, What is it, my dear? Are you still feeling unwell? She said, Father. Suddenly she heard a familiar voice saying, Father. Her brother Natal comes saying, I heard that Isabel has collapsed. Her father turns and said, Natal. She recalled what her husband from future said to her, Your brother. I've just received word that he's been killed on the battlefield. Natal asked, How is she now? She jumps off from bed and rushed towards him barefoot. She hugs him saying, Natal. He gets confused and asked, Isabel? While sniffling she said, Oh dear brother, I'm sorry. Very sorry. After some time her dad said to Rita, I trust you will look after Isabel with utmost care. Rita replied, Rest assured, Your Majesty, I shall. Rita enters in Isabel's room and closed the door. Isabel asked her, Have they all gone? She replied, Yes, Your Highness. While pouring food on plate for her she asked Isabel, How are you feeling now? She gave the meal to Isabel saying, I brought you some light soup. Please do try to have a little. Isabel said, Thank you. She starts having soup thinking, the comforting scent of this soup I've always liked. Rita asked her, Is this soup to your liking? With a beam of joy Isabel replied, Yes, it's delightful. After she had her meal Rita asked her, Your Highness, may I ask what you dreamed of? If you would rather not share, you needn't feel obliged. Isabel said, No, I'll tell you of my dream. Though it took some time, she slowly recounted to Rita all that had transpired in her nightmare. She said, It sounds preposterous, doesn't it? Meanwhile she thinks, It almost feels as though I've stepped back into the past, though I know such a notion is impossible. Rita said, Not at all. I believe anything you tell me, Your Highness. Isabel asked, But why, Rita? Rita replied, When you were a child, I believed you when you told me that you had seen a fairy, and I had good reason to. You were born on a warm spring day, and the moment you let out your first cries, a sudden gust of wind swept into the room, carrying with it countless flower petals. They filled the air, swirling as though they were dancing. It was such a marvelous and wondrous sight, as if the flowers themselves were celebrating your birth. Isabel said, But I'm. Suddenly she recalled her husband's words, You worthless wretch. She clenched her fist saying, I'm not someone worth celebrating. Rita holds her hand saying, Princess Isabel, please do not forget that all who love you hold you dearly in their hearts, myself included. Isabel felt relieved and said, Rita, thank you. Rita said, It seems to me that you have a guardian fairy watching over you. Whether it was just a bad dream or a glimpse of something yet to come, who can say? But perhaps it was the fairy who brought you back from that terrible place. Isabel asked, Do you really believe that? Though she was in great distress when she heard the whispers and cannot remember it clearly. She recalls the words that voice said to her, We will eliminate everyone who's ever caused you pain. She thinks, I am certain I heard a voice speak those words to me. Whether it was truly the voice of a fairy or something else, I cannot know. Still, I have returned safely from that dreadful place, and I pray I never have to endure such a future again. Sadly, those sweet and peaceful days soon came to an end. After some time passed already, the day came when a servant shouts in hurry, Your Majesty, I bring urgent news. The Eternity Empire has declared war upon our nation. Hearing this, Isabel gets shocked and flinched. She thinks, our humble kingdom was a place of peace, until the day dark clouds descended, bringing chaos in their wake. Ever since that day, I have scarcely seen my father, the king, or my brother, Prince Natile. And then, her dad reads of the message from Eternity Empire Few. The prince is to serve as a knight in the imperial order, and the princess is to wed a noble of the empire. Should we accept these terms, this treaty guarantees that no more blood of our people shall be shed. Isabel said, Father, he asked, what is it, Isabel? She thinks, the events are unfolding exactly as I remember them. Then she said, it's nothing, never mind. She thinks, soon my brother will be compelled to pledge himself to the imperial order and serve as a knight of the empire, and I will be forced to marry a noble chosen by the emperor. But this was never the path to guarantee the safety of everyone. I have to prevent that future from becoming reality. But how? She realized this was her opportunity to change things, so she tried many approaches. Yet she could not convince her father that there was another way. And before she knew it, time had slipped through her fingers. While walking through palace, she thinks, only a month left. Is there truly nothing more I can do? Surely, there must be something I've overlooked. Suddenly she heard someone saying, come on, think. Yes, of course. I understand completely. I apologize for the abruptness of my visit. He creaked open the door, and while he was leaving he encountered with Isabel, who was still lost in her thoughts. What else can I do? The man asked her, are you all right? She replied, yes, I'm fine. You didn't even graze me. He bowed and said, I'm glad to hear it. You are Princess Isabel, aren't you? It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. She also bowed while thinking, I've never seen him before, and he is dressed in the Empire's ceremonial uniform. Why would someone from the Empire be emerging from the audience chamber? The man said, your expression suggests you are curious as to why someone from the Empire is here in your castle. He said, I have come to see you, Princess. She started sweating and asked, to see me? Why? He said, you seem burdened with many concerns. He said, I believe I may be able to offer some assistance in that regard. She thinks, I cannot understand why he has come to me or what he knows of my circumstances. But, if I can change the future, she said, then might you enlighten me as to how you intend to help? She thinks, I will do whatever is necessary. The man said, certainly. But I believe a change of scenery is in order first. He claps and a magical aura appears. He teleported them on the roof of palace. She asked him, where are we? He replied, we're on the roof. Please watch your steps so you don't fall. She gets shocked and asked, how did we end up here? He said, silly me. I forgot to introduce myself, didn't I? He introduced himself, my name is Oz, and I am currently a professor at Kavala Academy. Hearing this she thinks, he's a professor at Kavala Academy? Ravala Academy, an educational institution located in the capital city of the Eternity Empire, renowned for nurturing students of exceptional talent and extraordinary abilities. Oz asked her, Princess Isabel, would you be interested in enrolling at Kavala Academy? She asked, confused, me? At Kavala Academy? But I've heard that place is reserved only for gifted students. Oz said, the truth is, I sensed an overwhelming surge of mana and followed it here, and that is how I found you. You are someone who possesses an immense amount of mana. You are extraordinarily gifted, more than enough to gain admittance to the academy. Hearing this she thinks, do I truly possess mana within me? She thinks, wait, now that I think about it, I've heard that the Emperor grants a rank and title to the graduate who receives the highest honors at Kavala Academy. This may be the opportunity I need to change my future. But she said, I am to be married soon, and I am not a citizen of the Empire. She asked him, is it still possible for me to enroll? He replied, His Majesty places great importance on talent. I am certain he would approve your admission, regardless of your origins or title, so long as you demonstrate potential. And from what I can see, you are most certainly gifted. The only question now is whether you wish to study at the academy. She said, I do. I want nothing more than to study at the academy. She thinks, if that is the case, then I'll have the power to shape my own future. Oz laughs and said, "Excellent. I shall recommend you for acceptance." Isabel asked, "But might I ask why you're going out of your way to suggest I attend the academy?" Oz replied, "The truth is, someone at the academy wishes to meet you." He teleported her inside saying, "Well then, I'll be seeing you again soon." Still confused, she thinks, "I'm back in the castle." Her dad comes and said, "Isabel," he asked her, "tell me, are you feeling unwell again?" Isabel replied, "No, father, I'm quite fine." Her father said, "I must apologize for not giving you more of my attention lately. I've been so consumed with state affairs that I've been unable to focus on anything else." She thinks, "In order to change the future that awaits me," she said, "Father, there is something I must speak to you about." 3 months later, at the academy, murmur filled the air. What a large crowd there is today. Well, of course there is. Today is the entrance ceremony for Kavala Academy. Second Prince of Eternity came and everyone looked at him. Someone said, "Look, over there. He's here. To think we'll be in the same year as His Highness. I'm so honored." Chris Dean Eternity, second Prince of the Eternity Empire. Isabel went near to Chris and said, "Pardon me, but is this seat taken?" He replied, "No, you are welcome to sit if you wish." She thinks, "Is it beginning already?" While sitting she said, "Thank you." Chris thinks, "I had predicted that a line of nobles would form, eager to establish ties with me once I was at the academy." He glanced at her thinking, "But I didn't expect anyone to be bold enough to speak to me before the ceremony had even started. By the air she gives off, she is certainly not a commoner. But I do not recognize her, so she must not be the daughter of high nobility. Perhaps her family is on the verge of ruin, and that is why she approached me. I suppose I will wait for her to speak first before asking her anything." He thinks, "Why is she simply sitting there? It has been 30 minutes, and she has yet to say a word to me." Seeing her reading some papers, he thinks, "What is she looking at? The admission guide?" He glanced at her thinking, "Is she attempting to draw my attention by behaving differently than others would?" The teacher at the academy said, "I sincerely congratulate all of you for the privilege of enrolling in our esteemed academy. As of today, you shall all begin your education here." He stares at her thinking, "She certainly picked the right way to catch my eye. But never mind, I should just ignore her." The teacher said, "This year, we are once again proud to welcome many remarkable new students from across the continent, not just from the Empire, and I am delighted to have you all at Kavala Academy. I will now announce the 2 individuals who have the honor of representing this new class of students. First, the top student." Just hearing this, Chris was almost stand thinking, "I suppose I should stand up now." But the teacher said, "Isabel Ruin Terra." He gets shocked and paused for a moment. The teacher continues, "Followed by our second place student, Chris Dean Eternity. Would these 2 kindly step forward to the podium?" Isabel started walking towards podium, but Chris was still confused. He thinks, "What? The prodigy of the Empire, the pride of the imperial family, a face sculpted by the gods, and countless other praises beyond that. But I have never felt pride nor satisfaction in being seen this way. While I may be more remarkable than my older brother, he is next in line to become emperor, and even that did not trouble me. After all, it is my birthright to hold the station I do and to be as extraordinary as I am. Even if I made no effort, everything seemed to fall effortlessly into my hand, and I truly believe that it would remain this way for all the days to come." Seeing the result, he thinks, "But it's all in silver lettering. I've finished in second place." He glanced at Isabel thinking, "Isabel Ruin Terra. Is she the princess of the Ruined Kingdom? Isn't that the kingdom that still considers agriculture its primary industry?" She noticed him glancing at her. He thinks, "Oh, we made eye contact." He smiles, seeing towards her. She also smiled back. He thinks, "She's finally looking at me." He thinks, "I'm sure she'll try to speak to me now." But she just passed him, walking, ignoring him. He rushed towards her thinking, "Huh? She's just leaving?" He shouted, "Wait." While rushing, he fidgeted and draws everyone's attention. She turns back to see what's happening. He flushed while thinking, this isn't what I had in mind at all." Meanwhile, Natile received a letter from Isabel. "To my beloved brother, Natile. Dearest Natile, it's Isabel. I write to you now that the entrance ceremony has concluded. I am pleased to share that it went smoothly. Perhaps due to the countless hours I devoted to my studies, I was honored to be named first in my class at Kavala Academy. I could hardly wait to share this joyous news with you." While reading the letter, he thinks, "She shared how she's been faring, and inquired about my own well-being." He continued reading it. "I'm quite nervous about what lies ahead, but I trust that I'll be able to adapt, just as you assured me I would. How are you, Nadine? Please promise me you'll always place your safety above all else, and know that I am constantly praying for your health and well-being. With love, Isabel. He felt touched and said, Isabel, he thinks, from the moment our mother departed this world, Isabel became the center of my life. She left us a few years after Isabel was born, having battled a lingering illness. Before her final breath, she had but one request, that I look after Isabel. And so, I vowed to honor her wish. His mother said, Natal. He asked, Yes, mother, she said, promise me you'll take good care of your sister, Isabel. He thinks, all I ever desired was for her to lead a joyful life, unburdened by hardships. So, when my precious little sister told me she wished to study outside the kingdom, I was rather taken aback and filled with concern. I feared her academic pursuits might overwhelm her. Yet now, she stands as the top of her class at the Kavala Academy. I'm so glad I respected her decision. Meanwhile, someone said, Natal, it's time for our morning training. He replied, I'll be there shortly. He drew his sword thinking, I can't just stand back and watch Isabel work herself so hard. Hold on just a little longer, Isabel. I promise I'll rise to knighthood in no time and keep you safe. Meanwhile, Chris was sitting in library. He recalled his encounter with Isabel. She wobbled but then managed to stand. She said, Goodness me, I nearly lost my footing. The floor is so slippery. It seems the waxing wasn't done quite right. He thinks, I was utterly shocked, to say the least. Not only has she surpassed me to become the top-ranked student, despite my education under the finest professors, but she's also clever enough to swiftly assess any situation and resolve it with ease. He thinks, there may be a unique educational practice in the Rune Kingdom designed to nurture prodigies. Suddenly Eskar comes and said, It appears you've finally lost your senses. He flinched by his sudden appearance. Eskar said, I can hardly believe my eyes. You, in the library? And so soon after enrolling in the academy? Chris said, If we hadn't been friends for so long, I'd have you locked away for daring to insult royalty. Eskar said, Well, I thank your highness for your boundless mercy. Chris said, What are you doing here anyway? You didn't even bother to attend the entrance ceremony. Eskar said, I came here because it's the quietest spot in the entire academy. Hearing this, Chris asked him, Is that so? He thinks, his hair is as unkempt as ever, white as clouds drifting in the sky. His name is Eskar Mua. He's the only son of the Empire's sole archmage and the master of the Magic Tower. The attention he commands as a new student rivals even that which I, an Imperial Prince, receive. The real issue, however, is that Eskar was practically forced to attend the academy, and it seems he's ready to take off at any moment. Chris sighed and said, Let me guess, you didn't hear a thing about the class assignments, did you? I've been placed in Class A, while you're in Class D. Eskar said, That's good to know. Chris thinks, if a friend is someone with whom you can share your innermost thoughts, then I would call him my only friend. He said to Eskar, You do realize Class D is for the lowest performers, right? Eskar glanced at him replying, I'm aware. Eskar asked him, Anyway, tell me, are you smitten with the princess of the Rune Kingdom? Hearing this, he gets shocked and shouted, What are you talking about? Eskar said, You and the princess of the Rune Kingdom, Chris asked him, How do you even know about her, when you didn't attend the entrance ceremony? Eskar replied, Oh, let's just say I have my sources. Besides, the Imperial Prince I know doesn't care much for books or studying, nor does he take much interest in lesser-known nations like the Rune Kingdom. He asked, Am I wrong? You didn't pick up that book purely for research. Chris thinks, though, at times like these, his perceptiveness can be annoying. He said, She ranked first in our class, while I placed second. So I was just a little curious, that's all. He asked Eskar, Does that answer your question? Eskar said it does. Meanwhile, he thinks, How intriguing. So she claimed the top spot, did she? Eskar asked Chris, Did you learn anything useful from the book? He replied, Not a thing. After some moments, Isabel thinks while walking, Down this hallway is the music room, and that one leads to the library. I've memorized the faces of every student in my year, and I brought everything I need for today's classes, including supplementary materials. Quite some time has passed since I first set foot in the academy. Perfect. Time to review the material in advance. Suddenly she flinched when she heard someone saying, Your Highness. She saw some girls asking Chris, Have you decided on your elective course yet? She thinks so, Chris is here. Suddenly, the room is filled with such a delightful fragrance. Chris replied them, No, not yet. I still need to think it over. She thinks, it's as if he's a Chris from a different world altogether. He glanced back at her but she averted her gaze. She thinks the second prince, I remember from that day, is nothing like the Chris who stands before me now. She thinks, when I was Count Valen's wife, he despised the imperial family, and none more so than the second prince. Chris, the second prince, was, as the Count claimed, a man driven solely by self-interest, weighing every decision by its benefit to him. Even his most devoted supporters were not spared his ruthlessness, for he would discard anyone who no longer served his purpose. However, contrary to the Count's description, the rumors throughout the realm praised and idolized him as a figure of radiance, a prince who seemed to shine simply by existing. But the man I saw that day, a lady fell a glass of wine on his foot and said, "And my deepest apologies, your highness. I beg your pardon for my mistake. Are you harmed in any way?" He grinned seeing her and moved his foot near the wine which makes his shoes dirty. Then he said to lady, "My lady, might I trouble you to wipe my foot?" Isabel continues, had the cold, piercing eyes of a man who would not forgive even the smallest misstep. I can still vividly recall the look in his eyes, but the Chris I see now feels like an entirely different person. Why is it that the Chris before me now seems so different from the one I remember? She thinks, could the Count have lied? But I know what I saw at the ball. Or is it possible that the Chris I see now is merely feigning kindness? Does it mean he will one day become cruel and corrupted? She shakes her thoughts. No. Enough of this. I must focus on my studies. If I'm to graduate as Valedictorian, homeroom professor for Class A and applied magic instructor, Oz said, "Good day. The weather is lovely again today, isn't it?" He asked Isabel, "Have you reviewed the materials from yesterday's class?" Isabel. She replied, "Yes, Professor." Oz said, "Excellent. Then let's see how well you've retained it." "What did I say is the most basic principle of magic?" She said, "Magic formulas." Oz nods and said, "Very good." She beamed. She thinks, I was a bit surprised when I learned he would be my homeroom professor, but now I'm glad to see him in class. Perhaps it's because we became acquainted before I arrived here. Applied magic isn't a basic field of study, so for someone like me, with little knowledge of magic, it's an even more challenging subject to grasp. However, the difficulty is no excuse to stop at simply doing the bare minimum. Oz said, "Magic, in many ways, resembles cooking. Just as ingredients are the foundation of any recipe, magic formulas serve as the essential building blocks of magic. Once the ingredients are ready, you proceed to the next step, the cooking itself." He asked, "In magic, what do you believe this step is called?" She thinks it has to be. Eskar comes close to Isabel and said, "Spells?" She turns to see. He asked, "You're the princess of the Rune Kingdom, aren't you?" He grinned and said, "I heard you ranked first in the class." Isabel replied, "Oh yes." Eskar said, "You must be quite remarkable to have outsockered him. Do you have a passion for studying?" She replied, Not particularly." Eskar asked, "You don't? Then how did you manage to take first place? That's incredible." Meanwhile Oz interrupts saying, "Eskar." Eskar said, "Oz, you startled me." Oz grinned and said, "It's Professor to you." Eskar glared and said, "Professor, you know how much I've been wanting to meet her." She blinked hearing this and thinks, "Meet me." Oz said, "This is a class, and we're in the middle of a lesson. You'll have plenty of time to introduce yourself to her during the break or at lunch." He asked Eskar, "So, are you going to participate, or shall I ask you to leave?" Eskar said, "I'll stay and listen." Oz said, "Excellent. Now, let us continue with the lesson, shall we?" Meanwhile, hearing their conversation, she thinks, how well must those two know each other to speak to one another in such a manner. Eskar introduced himself to Isabel saying, "I'm Eskar Mua." He whispered, "Just call me Eskar, Isabel." She thinks, white hair and crimson eyes. He reminded me of a rabbit. And for some reason, I couldn't tear my gaze away from his smile. After the class ends, she was packing to leave. Eskar comes in and she asked him, "May I ask why you're standing there, gazing at me like that?" He grinned and said, "You're pretty." She gets confused and asked, "Pardon me." Eskar winked and said, "And there's no need to be so formal." Isabel said, You said your name was Eskar, didn't you?" "I'm off to have dinner now." He said, "Oh? Then let's go together." She asked, "What?" While walking next to Eskar, she thinks, how curious. Coming from a vassal state, I've never had anyone approach or speak to me of their own accord. All the attention in our class is focused on Chris. Though I am the top-ranked student, the only time anyone ever talks to me is to ask about the lessons we've studied. And so, I've always found myself alone, whether heading to class, having lunch, or reading a book. Eskar said, Oz has a knack for making simple things sound overly complicated, which might explain why his classes are far from popular. Isabel asked. Do you think so? I've observed that many of the female students appear quite taken with him. Eskar said. That may be, but you've seen how empty his classroom is. Silent enough to hear crickets, she thinks, but now, it feels as though I've made a friend for the first time. And no, I'm not implying we're the insects. She asked Eskar. I was wondering, did you know who I was before we met? He said. Yes, I did. She asked. Was it because I ranked first in our class? He replied. No. She asked. Then how did you know? He replied. Because. Suddenly he said, careful, there's someone behind you. She turns to see behind her. It was Chris standing next to her. She said, Your Highness. Chris flinched. Chris thinks, after extensive research, I found nothing about any educational practices in the Rune Kingdom designed to foster prodigies. With my suspicions lingering, the more I delved into the Rune Kingdom, the more it became evident that the Rune Kingdom was far smaller and weaker compared to the Eternity Empire. Yet, there was no explanation to be found for Isabel Runeterra's remarkable brilliance, but after observing her in class for several days, I came to realize she was unlike the other children of noble houses, and I finally uncovered the answer to my question. Children from most noble houses have walked well-paved paths, laid out for them by their family's influence. Even here at the academy, they seek easy and efficient routes to success. I must admit, I am no different, but Isabel. She showed no interest in anyone's cheat sheet and never resorted to flattery. Even when faced with difficult schoolwork, she displayed unwavering determination, refusing to move until she had solved the problems herself. Some students whispered that she must have cheated to achieve her top ranking. But that couldn't possibly be true, not when she works so hard. Still, she always seems to be on her own, except when someone approaches her for help like that. Someone interrupts his thoughts asking, Your Highness, I was wondering, Prince Chris? He asked. Oh, yes? The boy asked him, Are you planning to enroll in introductory swordsmanship for your elective class? Chris said, Yes, that's my plan. I thought as much. Just like His Highness, the first prince, during his days at the academy, I expected you to join the swordsmanship department as well. Meanwhile, he thinks, the truth is, having been raised at court, I am already quite proficient in swordsmanship. Chris asked him, What about you? Which course are you taking? He replied, I'll also be taking introductory swordsmanship. He thinks, I'll likely be bored out of my mind, but I still chose to enroll because I'll probably earn a perfect score. He said, Great. Let us strive to do our best together. You're going to take applied magic, Isabel? Hearing this, he thinks, Applied magic? Did I hear that correctly? That class is notorious for being impossibly difficult. Even the most studious students tend to avoid it. And yet, she's really choosing that course? Not only that, but the Rune Kingdom has no mages, so she must have learned very little about magic. That will only make it harder for her. And still, she chose to take applied magic? He asked Isabel, Isn't that course supposed to be really difficult? She replied, Maybe so. But I don't want to avoid something just because it's difficult. Her words changed his mind and he went to his professor. His professor said, Why, Your Highness, I mean Chris. If this sudden change is due to dissatisfaction with my teaching methods. He shakes his head saying, No, that's not the reason, Professor. He thinks, as a prince of the empire, I have been trained in the art of swordsmanship since the age of 6. I am confident that I could excel in any introductory course on the subject. However, to become a truly great monarch, one must not simply hone their strength, but strive to eliminate their flaws. That is what His Majesty has always told me. He said, The blade has long been an extension of my body and holds a significant place in my life. Therefore, I believe it is only fitting that I take on a new challenge. He said, Professor, I hope you can understand. The professor nods and said, Ooh, I see. Chris grinned and said, I thank you sincerely for your kind understanding. He gets the registration form. Elective course registration, applicant name, Christine Eternity, subject of interest. Applied magic, he said, Applied magic. There are so many other interesting and enjoyable courses at the academy, yet must I truly enroll in applied magic? He thinks, No. Who am I? I am Christine Eternity, the Empire's second prince. So long as I have my brilliant mind, there is nothing to fear. I cannot back down now. This has become a matter of pride between the top student. Isabel said, Your Highness? He thinks, and the second best. Eskar asked Isabel, What are you doing here? Seeing them both together, Chris gets shocked and thinks, What in the world is he doing with Isabel? While having lunch, Eskar asked Isabel, Is that good? May I try some? She ripped the bread in 2 parts and gives one to him. Here. He said, thanks. After eating it, Eskar said, this is really good. Chris asked them, so, when did the two of you grow so close? Isabel replied, well, we're in the same class. He asked, which class? Wait, is it applied magic? She asked, how did you know? He replied, because you're at the top of our class, so I naturally assumed you choose a challenging course. He said, this works out nicely. I was planning to take applied magic as well. Hearing this, Isabel flinched and asked, you wish to take applied magic, Your Highness? Eskar said, how unexpected. Didn't you once say it was practically treason for a knight to pursue anything other than? Chris interrupts him saying, Professor Oz's passion for education is well known, even at court. It would be a shame not to take a course taught by such an esteemed educator while I'm here at Cavallo Academy. And really, there's no need to address me so formally. Here at Cavallo Academy, I'm just another student, not the Imperial Prince. Oz starts the class saying, it is truly an honor to have all of you here as my students. The second Imperial Prince Chris, Archmage's only son Eskar, Cavallo Academy, top student in the freshman class Isabel. Let's get started with today's lesson, shall we? Isabel draws a magical circle on ground. After completing it, she said to Oz, I'm all done. Oz said, well done. I knew you were capable of doing it perfectly. You've solved all the missing pieces in the magic formula. Now, do you recall the spell I taught you last time? She confidently replied, yes. She thinks, I've been committing it to memory over and over. All I need is to keep calm and recite it. But can I really do it? She glanced at Eskar, who was standing at distance. Eskar motivates her, whispering, you can do it. She thinks, all right, I just need to steady myself and give it a try. Let's take a deep breath first. She then starts casting a magical spell. Abra like the video Dabra. Just kidding. Chris and Eskar was stunned by her. Suddenly a cute rabbit appears. She said, Professor, it's our rabbit. Oz clapped for her and said, very good. You've successfully summoned a charming little rabbit. Creation magic, where you bring something into existence from nothing, can be quite advanced. But summoning magic, calling forth what already exists, is much more manageable. And you've done splendidly, Isabel. He hands the rabbit to her saying, congratulations on your first successful spell. He asked, would you like to keep the rabbit as your own? She grins and replied, I'd love to. After that they comes outside. While scratching his head, Eskar said, this is exactly why I avoided Oz's lectures in the first place. Chris said, then why not just quit? Honestly, what's come over you? The ever-elusive Eskar, suddenly a model student attending every class? Hearing this, Eskar stares at him. He said to Chris, I could ask you the same question. You've never had an interest in magic. What's changed? Why are you suddenly attending class so diligently? Chris replied, I don't know what you're talking about. Isabel interrupts them, calling Eskar, Eskar. With a smile on her face, she said, thank you. Thank you for encouraging me before I recited the spell earlier. Hearing this, he thinks, oh, she was so visibly tense, standing there like a statue. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Seeing her, he thinks that aside. There's something else I'm wondering about right now. Regular mages can wield and control mana. High mages can detect it. And archmages have the ability to see it. As someone who is said to one day surpass the current archmage, I've been able to see mana since I was a child. But it's the first time I've ever seen red mana. Mana, which draws its energy from the tree of life, typically radiates a blue glow. I've read in books that red mana exists, but every mana I've seen in real life has always been blue. Mine, the archmage's, and even Oz's. But you, Isabel, yours is different. Why is that? She interrupts his thoughts. Eskar, I've been wondering, earlier, when we made eye contact, you helped me feel at ease. Maybe that's why I kept thinking of you right after. And maybe that's how this happened. She moves the rabbit closer to him and asked, don't you think this rabbit kind of looks like you? Chris asked, wait, are you saying the rabbit looks like Eskar? She replied, yes. Look at it. It's white, with red eyes. Chris starts laughing and Eskar asked him, what's so funny? He replied, it's nothing, just that you and the rabbit really do look alike, white fur, red eyes and all. He starts walking thinking, they're comparing me to a rabbit. I've only ever been called a monster before. She called him Eskar. He paused. Then he said, Isabel, do you really think I look like that rabbit? She nods saying, I do, at least in my eyes you do. Meanwhile she thinks, oh no, did I offend him somehow? He turns and with a grin on his face he said, I see. Seeing him she thinks, oh thank goodness. I guess I didn't upset him after all. Chris asked, where should we have dinner tonight? Eskar said, Anywhere, as long as you're the one paying. Chris said, excuse me? Next day I was seeing the class full with students said, I still can't believe it, even after seeing it myself. To think there are so many students who chose to enroll in my class. I was on the verge of tears throughout the entire lesson. He thinks seeing Chris, though, the reason for this is obvious. He thinks, I'm so happy. But Chris glanced to look for Isabel thinking, where is Isabel? A girl came and said, Your Highness, about the party I mentioned before. Chris asked, what? She said, surely you haven't forgotten the party you promised to join this time? Chris replied, yes, that party. I haven't forgotten. Some students came and said, Prince Chris, the introductory swordsmanship professor seemed a bit sad when you chose a different class. Your Highness, might I trouble you for a moment? I wasn't aware you had an interest in magic. Your Highness, while walking with Isabel, Eskar asked her, You're skipping dinner tonight? Why? She replied, It's just that today's lesson was quite challenging. I feel like I need to review the materials again. She asked him, would you like me to help? As he draws a magical circle. She thinks, the magic circle and formula are perfectly prepared. She puts the rabbit between the circle and thinks, all that's left is to chant the spell properly. Then she starts casting the spell while thinking, please, let me get it right this time. She failed again and thinks, no, I've failed again. Even my poor rabbit looks utterly worn out. She glanced thinking, if Eskar were attempting this, he'd have done it effortlessly. There's something I learned not long after meeting Eskar. He's the Archmage's only son. Everyone at the academy knew who he was, just like they know Chris. Of course, that doesn't mean he excels at magic for that reason alone, but that's the assumption everyone makes about him because of his exceptional talent for magic. Yet, despite his talent in magic, she recalls when she asked him for help. You're going to help me? Are you sure about that? He replied, of course. Why? Do you think I won't be of any help? She replied, no, that's not what I meant. I just thought you didn't like magic. He asked, what gave you that idea? She said, Professor Oz uses magic for even the smallest things, like turning book pages, but you never use it for anything like that. And sometimes, during magic lessons, you make these scary faces. I figured you didn't care for it. She said, in any case, I wouldn't dream of pressuring you into doing something you dislike. That's the last thing I want. He said, then at least let me come with you and watch. Seeing him taking naps, she thinks, if he intended to nap, he could have gone back to his room. It's still far too chilly out here. She shook her head thinking, no, wait. This is no time to get distracted. I need to focus. I'm sure I can do it right this time. I'll take my time and try again. When Eskar was a kid, seeing him, someone said, my goodness, that boy can actually see mana already. But don't you remember the commotion from before? They say he's capable of performing all sorts of magic. He's practically a monster. His dad said, what did you just say? You're refusing to become a mage. If not a mage, then what on earth do you intend to do? This is nonsense. You will become a mage, one way or another. But her mother said, Eskar, you should follow your heart and do what you truly want. I'll always support you, sweetheart. He wakes up and seeing darkness around, he thinks, it's dark out. How long have I been asleep? And where did this jacket come from? Isabel was sitting next to him. She asked, oh, you're finally awake, he said. Isabel, have you been practicing all this time? She replied, well, yes, there's something I wanted to show you when you woke up. She beamed with joy, telling, look, I finally succeeded in creating a magical contract. He asked, how? She replied, I'm not entirely sure. Gently pressing rabbit, she said, I simply asked my rabbit if it would form a contract with me. He grins, asking, what? That's all? He thinks, what Isabel accomplished was forming a magical contract. This type of magic allows one to claim ownership of an object or living creature they've summoned. It's like watering a plant. All it requires is channeling their magic into the summoned being, making it relatively simple. But Isabel can't even sense mana yet. He gave her jacket back, saying, you can have your jacket back. She said, it's getting late, isn't it? We should really head back in. We thank you for staying with me while I practiced. He turns towards her, saying, Isabel. She asked, yes? He poked the rabbit, asking, have you decided on a name for this little one? She replied, huh? No, not yet. He said, wait, don't tell me you only think of that rabbit as some kind of house pet? She replied, well, maybe a little. He tells her, the final step in completing a magical contract is naming your summoned companion. It's a verbal bond that ties the two of you together. Without a name, the contract's incomplete, and it could leave you. She asks. What? What should I name it? He thinks, wait, why am I even teaching her this in the first place? I only said it because it happened to cross my mind. Meanwhile she said, oh, I've got it, Mew. I'll name it Mew. He gets confused and asked, Mew, is that from my last name? She replied, it is. He asked, why that name? She said, because you were the first friend I made at the academy, and Mew is the first creature I've summoned. She asked him, do you not like it? Should I choose something else? He said, no, it's fine. You can call it whatever you like. He pats Mew saying, I hope we can get along well, Mew. She said, you know, the more I look at Mew, the more I think Mew looks like you. He said, I really don't see the resemblance. After some time passed already, I said to class, it's already been 2 months since this semester started. As I trust you are all aware, we shall be hosting a freshman welcoming soiree next week. Moreover, the Academy's clubs will begin recruiting new members at that time. If you'd like to learn more, do check the bulletin board in the hallway for the latest announcements. Isabel checked the board. She thinks the gardening club, the divination club, the sewing club, the theology club, the newspaper club. There are so many to choose from. I have no idea which one to join. After that, Escar and Isabel were sitting on stairs and she tells him about clubs. He asked, a club? You want to join a club? She replied, yes. At the freshman welcoming event, clubs will be recruiting new members. I wonder which one I should apply to, he asked. But do you really need to join a club? She sighed and replied, I'm afraid so. I could really use the extra credit. He tilted his head asking, extra credit. He thinks, if there were a self-study club, that's the one I would have joined. It's such a shame there isn't one. Given her unusual mana color, I believe that club would suit her well. He asked, what do you think about joining the magic club? She asked, the magic club? But I never saw it mentioned anywhere on the bulletin board. He replied, that's because you can only get in with a recommendation, and I can recommend you. She said, Escar, you're in the magic club? He replied, no, I'm not. But the club's president approached me long before I even enrolled, practically begging me to join. He said, so Isabel, if you want to get in, I can become a member first and then recommend you. She stares at him. She asked, but you don't want to join any clubs? He replied, that's true. She said, then I'll have to decline. He gets surprised and asked, what? She said, as for magic, I'm already learning plenty in Professor Oz's classes. And, as I mentioned before, I don't wish to push you into anything you'd rather not do. Thank you for offering your recommendation, but I believe I should explore other clubs instead. He thinks, throughout my life, I've been surrounded by those willing to do absolutely anything, no matter the cost, to achieve their desires. That is the nature of most mages. However, there are some who become so consumed by greed that they'll willingly forsake their very humanity to fulfill it, going to extreme lengths in the process. Isabel, on the other hand, is nothing like that. Most would leap at the opportunity if anyone offered such help. He said, you truly are? She asked, He said, positively one of a kind, if you asked me. She asked, I am. After some time, Chris enters the class. Seeing him, students said, look, there's Prince Chris. Oh, that melancholy gaze. He looks marvelous today, too. A boy said, I wonder if something's on his mind. He looks especially lost in thought. A girl said, perhaps it's related to all the club recruitment buzz. Everyone's running around trying to decide which club to join. I wonder which one he'll pick. Surely the swordsmanship club, wouldn't you agree? Hearing them, Chris thinks, a club, huh? At Kavala Academy, the extra credit awarded for participating in club activities is quite significant, making it almost mandatory for students to join one. I'm sure Isabel will choose to join a club too, whichever that might be. But which one will she pick? I need to think this through. Whenever Isabel begins to overthink, she has a habit of pursing her lips. No, don't think about that. I do remember her regularly reading by the fountain in the garden, so it's entirely possible she intends to join the book club. Suddenly he realized something and said to himself, oh, now that I think about it, I do recall sewing and embroidery being among her hobbies. 2 days ago, Chris noticed Isabel's skirt. Seeing it, he thinks, oh no, her skirt. Will I just embarrass her if I try to help right now? She likely has another skirt, so she'll be fine, won't she? The next day, he heard a girl saying to Isabel, oh my, Isabel, there's a rabbit on your skirt. How utterly charming. Isabel replied, yes, I embroidered it myself. It's a little pastime of mine. The girl said, I see. How lovely. Chris thinks she did that herself? But why put in so much effort? No, wait. It can't be. That was when I realized Isabel is a struggling foreign student who cannot even afford a spare uniform. Surely her unwavering determination to excel in her studies stems from her need to secure a scholarship here. If that's the case, with no self-study club available, and given her hobby, the only club Isabel could possibly join it has to be that one. A few days later, at the freshman welcoming party, students' parents visit academy. A man said to his boy, "Oh, my son, look how much more manly you've become since I last saw you." "Oh, father, please," a lady said to her daughter. "Good heavens, you've grown so thin. Have you been eating well?" Isabel stands there with her rabbit. Then she starts walking, thinking, I should head to the library. At least it will be quiet there. While reading a book in library, she thinks, tonight, I shall write a letter to my brother. She heard someone's voice. That's not it. This isn't right, she thinks, huh? Is someone else here? A girl was sitting next to her, visibly stressed. She shouts, "Ugh, honestly. Nothing seems to be going my way today." Seeing her, Isabel thinks, oh, so there is. I'd thought the library would be empty today. Noticing her tie, Isabel thinks, a red necktie. Could she be an upperclassman? The girl turns to see Isabel. She thinks so. We made eye contact. The girl said, "You there?" She said, "Yes." The girl said, "Hold still for just a moment, if you would. I promise it won't take long." Isabel, surprised and confused, asked, excuse me?" The girl then starts writing. After finishing writing, she said, "Yes, that's it. This is exactly it. I've finally done it." The girl shakes hand with Isabel, saying, "Thank you so much. Without you, I might never have completed my script." Then she said, "Oh, but where are my manners? My name is Joy." Isabel replied, "I'm Isabel." The girl flinched and asked, "Wait, are you Isabel Runeterra? The very student who placed first among this year's freshmen? Then you must be the princess of the Rune Kingdom." Isabel said, "Yes, that's correct." The girl said, "What a delightful coincidence. To tell you the truth, the script I was writing was inspired by you. The moment our eyes met, I felt something. And now I see why." She asked, "By the way, have you decided on a club yet?" Isabel said, "No, not yet." Joy asked, "Is there one you're considering?" Isabel replied, "At the moment, I'm considering the sewing club or the book club. I feel like the magic club might be a bit too much for me." Joy slams her hand on table, saying, "Oh, then how about the theater club?" Isabel asked, "The theater club? But I've never acted in a play before. I wouldn't have the slightest clue what to do." Joy said, "Don't worry. Learning about different kingdoms will make our scripts even more exciting. The more we know, the more captivating the stories will be. And there's more to the theater club than just acting. There's so much more to do. Members design costumes, build sets, craft props, and even write their own scripts. With so many ways to be involved, I'm sure you'd find it both exciting and fulfilling. So, what do you say?" Isabel thinks, "But I can't choose a club that will distract me from my studies." Joy said, "Did I mention the best part about the theater club? Extra credit comes effortlessly," she said. "As long as we put on one performance, we're guaranteed additional credit. And that's just one of many benefits. Would you care to hear more?" After some time, Isabel walks with Eskar and he asked her, "So, you've decided to join the theater club?" He said, "I see." Meanwhile, he thinks about what Chris told him. "Oh, which club did I choose? The sewing club. An unusual choice, I know. But I found myself drawn to the idea of learning something entirely outside my expertise. The club teaches practical skills such as sewing, embroidery, and even garment making. And as the Empire's prince, shouldn't I at least understand the effort that goes into such things?" He snickers, thinking he already applied to the sewing club. Now I have something to tease him about. Isabel asked him, "By the way, Eskar, why are you alone today? Where is your family?" She thinks Kavala Academy is known for its strict security and rarely allows outsiders to enter. As a boarding school that seldom opens its doors to the public, days like this are when most students receive visits from their families. That's why I assumed Eskar would be with his family as well, but, he told, they didn't come. "My father doesn't care for me, and my mother, she passed away." Isabel felt sad and said, "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Eskar said, "It's all right. I just thought I should be honest with you. It's better you know sooner rather than later." With a laugh he said, "Since we're friends." "Friends," he said. "Oh, right, Isabel. Do you have anything else to do today? If you're free, let's go do something fun." She replied, "Sorry, but I can't. There's a lecture soon, so I need to head to the small assembly hall." Eskar, confused, asked, "A lecture? But there aren't any classes today. She said yes, but apparently, a graduate of the academy is holding a special lecture. All of the students whose names were posted on the bulletin board are required to attend. It's meant to be a supplementary class. Eskar asked, confused, but you were admitted to the academy with top marks. Why do you need to attend a supplementary class? She replied. I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I'm a foreign student, he said. I was hoping to take you along to tease Chris. She dashed away. While going, she turns and asked, would you like to come with me? Eskar said, huh? Why would I? Then he said, actually, that might not be a bad idea. He said, all right, let's go. While in lecture, she glances around her and thinks, what is with this somber air? Everyone looks anxious and uneasy, and from what I can tell, they all seem to be from the commoner class. Then a familiar voice came. It seems everyone is present now. The lecturer for today is a distinguished graduate of the Academy's 26th graduating class. Seeing the person, she gets shocked and thinks, wait, that's Count Valen. Valen said, good day, everyone. She starts trembling seeing Count Valen. He said, I have gathered you here today because, as a former student of Kavala Academy, I know all too well how demanding the pursuit of knowledge can be. As your senior, I hope to offer even the smallest bit of guidance to aid you in your studies. She thinks, I thought our paths might cross again someday since we live in the same empire. But I never imagined it would happen like this. Valen said, before we proceed, I believe it would be wise to evaluate everyone's current proficiency. He asked the girl, shall we begin with you? Your name is? The girl replied, my name is Lot. Valen said, very well, Miss Lot. If you would, please read the passage aloud for the class. Lot starts reading while trembling. I in the year 176 of the imperial calendar. Her voice shaky. The fourth emperor, Lucas Dean Eternity, oversaw the discovery of A.M.M. Valen sighed and said, mine. Lot continues, this mine was found to hold an abundant supply of moonstones. He snatched the paper from Lot saying, that is quite enough, he said. In my time, the entrance examination for this academy was exceedingly difficult. Only the most capable were selected through a rigorous screening process, which is why the academy was held in such high esteem. But now, it seems even simpletons are granted entry. To think that a student who cannot even read the Empire's language properly has been accepted. As a graduate and your senior, I am profoundly disappointed. The room went silent. Then Valen asked, is there any other student willing to attempt reading this? Eskar chilled thinks, I was trying to get some sleep, but with that bastard's absurd prattling, it's impossible. He thinks, perhaps I should throw the entire classroom into chaos. Suddenly Isabel raised her hand saying, if I may, I would like to give it a try. She starts reading, in the year 176 of the imperial calendar, the fourth emperor, Lucas Dean Eternity, oversaw the discovery of a mine in the southern region of the capital. This mine was found to hold an abundant supply of moonstones. Since then, moonstones have become one of the Empire's primary exports. In the year 169 of the imperial calendar, ownership of the mine was formally granted to House Valen. She paused for a moment. Valen stares at her. He thinks, at first, I assumed she was merely a noble's daughter who stumbled into the wrong place. He comes closer to her and asked, is something wrong? Are you having trouble reading the next section? He thinks, but it appears she's just another undeserving, uneducated nuisance cluttering up this academy. She said, it says that in the year 169 of the imperial calendar, ownership of the mine was transferred to House Valen. But wasn't it officially recognized by the imperial crown? 6 years later, in 175, hearing this, Valen got shocked. He thinks, how could a mere first-year student know it took 6 years for House Valen to secure the imperial crown's approval? He said, you seem remarkably well informed. He thinks, only a handful of people are even aware of that. He asked, might I inquire as to your name? She said, my name is Isabel. Isabel Rune Terra. Hearing that, he got shocked and thinks, this arrogant girl is the princess of the Rune Kingdom? The Kingdom of Rune is just a tiny island nation, smaller than my own territory. They even lost the war and ended up a vassal of the Empire. So when the marriage talks with Rune's princess fell through, I was secretly relieved. But who would have guessed I'd run into her here at Kavala Academy? She's still just a princess from a backwater kingdom. Although she appears to have had some education, if I press her a bit, her shortcomings will become evident. He grits his teeth saying, then, you must also be aware of the Empire's principal exports at the time, aside from moonstones, correct? She said, fairy mushrooms, which can only be harvested in the eastern regions, fine jewelry and precious goods crafted in the imperial capital, and silk spun from blue butterflies. He smirks and thinks, I was right. He said, you missed one thing? The Veronica tea leaves. Then he said, they were cultivated in our territory, and were especially popular among noble ladies for their skincare benefits. She said, but if I recall correctly, 2 years after they were approved for export, their trade was completely prohibited due to their excessive sleep-inducing effects. Hearing that, Valen got shocked. Meanwhile, Eskar thinks, he basically showed everyone where he's lacking. What a fool. He starts sweating and said, you really are quite well-versed. Then, can you tell me the name of the monument erected in the year 179, after the passing of the 4th emperor? She said, that would be the Arnosha monument. He asked, what about the empire's earliest law books and their location? She said they were called the Dembus law books, stored within the Sori labyrinth, which is under the custody of the imperial family. He said, now, regarding the agreement with the Skydal Union, he crumpled the paper in his hand. He said, how? He thinks, how can this be? She hails from a remote kingdom. Barely worthy of note, she said, are you wondering how a princess from a rural kingdom could know all this? Hearing this, he got furious and trembles. She said, Kavella Academy grants equal access to its curriculum for all students, no matter their birth or background. Because of that, I've been able to learn a great deal here myself. Yet it appears things were different during your time, Count Valen. Valen said, and my goodness, look at the time. We must conclude our lecture here. Then a girl came closer to Isabel and said, excuse me. She was Lot, and Isabel asked, oh, you're Lot, right? Lot fidgeted and said, I just wanted to thank you for earlier. Isabel asked, what? Lot said, as you might have guessed, I am a commoner. That's why I only have a first name and no family name. Even so, I did my best to get accepted into Kavala Academy. It's just that when I get singled out like that, my mind goes completely blank. So, thank you so much for stepping in. At night, Isabel farewell Eskar, saying, good night, Eskar. He replied, you too? He stares at her while she walks towards her room and thinks, even today. He called Isabel. She turns and asked, yes? He thinks, you seem to always find a way to shine all on your own. He said, never mind, it's nothing. See you tomorrow. She said, okay. She was walking through the hall when a lady shows her a letter saying, Isabel, there's a letter for you. However, you should be aware that roaming the halls at this hour is ill-advised. Isabel said, I apologize. Then sitting inside her room, she opens the letter and starts reading. To Isabel, thank you for your recent letter. I am glad to learn that you are faring well. It's from Nadal. Please do not worry about me. I once withstood the rigorous training of General Castle, the Black Panther of Rune. Compared to that, what I am undergoing now is nothing. When summer break arrives, why not visit the training grounds? I have something planned that I believe will astonish you, so do look forward to it. Oh, and should you ever find yourself in distress, please do not keep it to yourself. Remember that we live under the same sky, and I am always here for you. I am proud of you, my dear sister, and wish you every joy. Yours affectionately, Natile. After reading the letter, she felt relieved and thinks, Natile, a great deal happened today. To be honest, I felt rather lonely watching the other students with their families. However, I am all right now, because I realize that, no matter how far apart we are, we'll always be together in heart and mind. I can hardly wait until summer break arrives. Next morning, while she walking through hall, she thinks, I woke up earlier than usual today. Perhaps I should review the world history material we will be studying in class this afternoon. Chris came and said, hello, Isabel. He said, what a beautiful morning we're having, don't you think?